One Take Frank, and today I'm going to show you how to make a great pasta sauce using Southern style pork loin ribs. Okay, the reason why I use these pork loin ribs is because right now I have a bowl of them. This is typically, oh gosh, I don't even know, probably about 10 pounds of these pork loin ribs. And what I'm going to do is, if you come in a little closer, I'm going to show you why I use these. These are a pretty meaty rib, okay, because you have the whole pork loin portion right here, okay, that once it cooks in the sauce for about 2 hours, it's going to kind of fall apart. It's going to be a really good white meat. Yet you still have the bone right here that's going to add a lot of sauce to the flavor. A lot of flavor to the sauce. Not a sauce to the flavor. A lot of flavor to the sauce. So what I'm going to do is, before I do anything, I usually just put these pork loin ribs right into a pot, just like this, dry, no oil, no nothing. And what they're going to do is they're going to kind of steam in its own, it's going to make its own steam and juice in there. And it's going to steam in there for a few minutes. And while it does that, we'll start getting our sauce ready to put these in. Okay, so let's get started. We'll get right to it now. And what I'm going to do is, I'm going to turn my pot on to about a medium-high heat. And I'm going to just layer these pork loin ribs right into the pot. I kind of put a couple layers in there. And you got to stir around while we're going. If you want to come a little closer and take a look in the pot, you'll see just exactly how I layered them in there. Okay, just like that. And they're not going to stick to the pot because, like I said, it's going to make its own juice. And what this does too is it does two things. Number one, I just don't like putting raw pork into the tomato sauce. So that's pretty much why I do this. Second of all, by doing this, it's going to get rid of a lot of the excess fat that's on this meat. It's going to come off into the pot. Thirdly, you'll see once we're done, this is going to almost look like a white look to it. Okay, and what that's going to do is it's going to seal kind of the outside, seam the outside, and it's still going to be raw on the inside, but it's going to hold it together, the juices together inside the meat. And I notice that when I do this, after cooking them in the meat, they tend not to fall apart. You know, they all stay intact. The only part that does actually fall off maybe is the bone from the solid part of the meat, but the solid part of the meat does stay together. So that's primarily why I do that. So all my ribs are right there in the pot. Give my hands a quick little wash here. Okay. I'm going to just cover this. And I'm going to put this on high just to get it going, and we're going to take it from here. Okay, now we're going to get our tomato sauce going. Now with that, I'm going to do the usual thing you've probably seen in my other video for the ricotta meatballs. So I've coated this pot with olive oil, okay? So I'm going to put that down, and what I should have done while I was putting this in here, I should have went ahead and turned the stove on this, but I didn't. So I'm going to let that go for just a minute. And in there I'm going to put my medium chopped onion. And we're going to use 28 cans of tomatoes, crushed tomatoes again. And we're going to put them through that food mill. So I remember I explained about what the food mills do on the ricotta ball recipe. So I'm going to do it again today. Only this time I'm going to try this other food mill. I know I have two different kinds. My favorite one's an old one that I've had for 40 years. It's kind of broken in a couple spots. But I thought, let me give this a shot because I could probably fit both cans in here at one time. And we'll see how that goes. So I'm going to leave that on the side for now. And while I'm doing this, I could also hear that this pork meat's starting to sizzle here a little bit. So I'm going to just kind of give that a little turn around a little bit. Just move around. As you can see, here's one now already. This is what you want it to look like when it's done. So here's one before you had it cooked, and here's what it should look like after you have it steamed. It's going to have this nice white appearance to it. So I'm going to just move around in the pot a little bit. And you can, I mean, it's not that hot right now because I just started it. But you can move them around in the pot. I don't want them to stick to the bottom of the pan. So I'm going to move them a little bit. And then once they get going, there's going to be steam juice forming from the pork in here. And it's going to actually not stick to the bottom. It's going to have a little bit of its own like grease and juice in the bottom of the pan, so it will not stick. So I'm going to just move them around a little bit. And at the same time, I'm going to turn my temperature down. And we're going to let this go until they all look, have this kind of texture to it. That white texture, so, and that white color to it. So I'm going to let this go for a little bit. And there's actually a fourth reason why I do this. And you'll see when I'm done, because actually when I'm done steaming these in the pot, I like to rinse them off because there's a lot of residual, I like fatty little pieces that get on it, so I try and get rid of that also. So anyway, we'll let that go for a few minutes while I get my sauce ready. And my olive oil should be, yep, just about ready. So I'm going to put in my one onion in there, one medium onion. And I just want to separate these two right now. My spoons. I'll grab another spoon here for the sauce. Okay, we're going to let this go for a little bit. Start to let that sizzle a little bit in here. We want to get those onions caramelized. Get out of the spoon here. Now just, once this is all ready, we're going to bring this sauce to a boil. Once the sauce, we're finished the sauce, it comes to a boil, I'm going to drop the pork loins into the red sauce, and we're going to let that cook, let that simmer actually for 2 hours. And you'll see at the end of 2 hours how that meat's going to be very tender, going to fall off the bone. And we're going to take it from there. So that's what we're going to do there. Right now, we're going to let these onions go a little bit here. Let those caramelize a little. I always say salt to taste once we put the sauce in there. But I do like a little crushed red pepper in my sauce. That's totally optional, up to you if you want to do that. We're going to take a look at our pork loin here. You don't have to come here yet, camera. I got a different camera person today, actually. Jonathan took the day off, so I got his understudy in here. And she does a great job as a camera person as well. All right, so these pork loins are kind of steaming pretty well in the pot. We're going to let that go. And this onions are just about ready. Again, not a big deal if you don't caramelize the onions. Take a look in the pot here if you want to see that. Not a big deal if you're going to caramelize these onions because, again, this sauce is going to be cooking for like 2 hours. And this is all going to get very, very soft, almost to the point of dissolving. So it's not a big deal. I typically like to caramelize my onions when I'm doing like a quick sauce. That I'm just doing plain marinara sauce. It's just so it'll give it a lot of flavor that way. When you do it for a short period of time. But typically for something like this, I'm going to let it go just like that. Okay, onions look like they're ready. Time to drop our crushed tomatoes in there. Now, this actually, food mill is actually pretty cool because it has these little legs that'll help it to stay on the pot. So with that, I'm going to pour in my crushed tomatoes. Here to start to go in there. Now I don't want to put these tomatoes too high. I really don't want to touch this metal bar going across. So I'm going to just kind of put it down, move the sauce down a little bit. And again, the reason why I put it through a food mill is because crushed tomatoes, they're actually very flavorful, but they do have the skin and the seeds intact. So what I do is by putting it through the food mill, these food mills actually separates the skin and the seeds from the sauce, so it doesn't get into your sauce, which I particularly do not like to have the seeds in my my sauce like that. Some people do like it, and if you do, then it's real easy. All you gotta do is just pour the crushed tomatoes right into the pot, if that's how you like it. The other thing too is you can buy just tomato sauce that's already has this all taken out of it. I just feel that it's not full of flavor as this is, as the crushed tomatoes are, so that's it. Now what I'm doing right now, I just kind of rinse the cans out with whatever sauce is on the side. Just kind of swirl it around a little bit to get all the sauce out. I'm going to put that in my food mill in just 1 second. Sometimes you kind of go back and forth motion because some of the sauce actually tends not to fall into the flap that's on the bottom of the food mill, but this seems to be going pretty well. I'm going to pour the rest of this water here with the residual. Oh, there's still sauce in here. Wow. Just want to rinse out the cans a little bit from that. But I don't want my sauce to be too watery. Okay, there you go. And again, this sauce is going to cook for 2 hours, so it will thicken as well. So I'm going to keep this going through the food mill. It's almost done. You can take a look in the food mill if you want to see what's going on here. You can see on the bottom here how, if I spin it backwards, see what happens? It kind of takes everything out. And now it's getting to the very bottom here. And you see here how some of this stuff is stuck to the side? I like to get all that into that fan there and get it all pressed through. Now I explained the other day how the other food mill I have has a lot of torque to it and actually forces it through. This does not, but it still does a pretty decent job. I never really used this one before. And once you're done with that, if you look on the bottom of the food mill, all this sauce here is all the pulp. You want to make sure you get all that into your sauce. So make sure you clean that really well. And that's it. Alright, we got that in. We're good with that. I'm going to give this a quick stir. You want to get all that stirred in get all the thicker sauce on the bottom up to the top. Mix that very well. Okay. I'm going to just salt this to taste. Any way you like to salt it, you feel free. Okay. That's great. I'm going to keep this covered and let this come to a boil. Take a look at our pork loin meat here, the southern style pork loins, and as you can see how they all have gotten that white color now, right? A couple here still have to go a little bit, but for the most part they did, and there was a lot of liquid. See, a lot of the fat came off, a lot of liquid is on the bottom of the pot. I'll show you that in just a second. I'm going to just let that go for a minute, because what I want to do is I'm going to use this bowl I had before. Let me just put that right there for now. I always just want to use this bowl I had before. I'm going to just give it a good wash with a little soap, because I had the raw pork meat in here earlier. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to put that meat right in here. So I'll give it a good cleaning. Should have had another bowl brought out to save a little time, but all the beauty of being one take frank. And you know what, honestly, this is how you would do it. If you were home, this is how I would do it. If I wasn't being one take frank, I just kind of wash everything as I go. Matter of fact, I usually use only one pot. I usually just use this pot for everything. I like the size of this one here. But at the same time, I kind of went to two pots. I usually do the pork, take it out, wash it, wash the pot, then go ahead and make my sauce. So this is actually a better way to save a little time using the two pots. So I'm going to turn this off right now. And I'm going to take out my pork into this bowl. That's the way you want it to look. It doesn't take long. I think that was only maybe about 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes tops. And what you can see happening here is now it kind of got a firm outside to it, so it kind of will hold together and hold the juices in the inside, so it won't fall apart in the sauce. Okay, and I'll show you the other reason why I do this in just a second. All right, so you can see if you look in the pot, oh wait 1 second here. If you look in the pot, you can see all this residual stuff that came off here. Okay, so I just don't like that on the pork meat. And with that being said, when I put this pork meat here into the sink here, I want to just show you something. And I'm going to just move this stuff on the side. Oh, you came over there? All right. I'll leave it to that side now. under cold water, I'm going to rinse this pork off, this pork meat, only because there's a lot of residual stuff that kind of sticks to it. I just want to get all that off. Because that tends to get into the sauce. It kind of, when you just put the raw meat into the sauce, you get this kind of stuff on the bottom of your sauce. And this is the reason why I kind of do this. So it kind of is like a clean way of doing it. So I just really rub everything, all this meat off under cold water, just to get all that residual off of there. And you see what I mean? It's kind of like, kind of almost like sticks to your hands a little bit too. So I just want all that out. So there you go. And I just rinse this all off. Just take a minute or two. Alright, just about done. A couple more pieces left. And this is going to make a great sauce for your Sunday dinner. Actually, you could make this sauce now and serve it, make your pasta and do it all at the same time, which is what I typically do. But today, I'm going to actually make this for tomorrow, only because I want to show you, this pork meat does tend to have a lot of grease in it, a lot of fat in it, and once you're done cooking after 2 hours, I'm going to show you how all the grease does come to the top of the pot. And you could either skim it off now, or if you put it in the refrigerator overnight, the next day it's really easy to kind of take the fat off. And I'm going to do the next thing method to kind of show you that. I'm going to show you both actually, but we are going to make this for tomorrow. So I'll show you what it looks like when you keep it overnight in the refrigerator. So we're going to come back over here to our pot of sauce. We're going to uncover it, and as you can see, it's boiling pretty nicely right now. Once I give it a stir, it'll kind of settle down from the boiling process. So now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to place all this meat into the pot. And again, you're going to have a little sauce displacement here as the sauce will rise and will cover this meat, which is what you want to have happen. And it almost looks like that this pot isn't big enough. But I can tell you from experience it is. This is actually the perfect pot for this. I got 2 more pieces right here. And there you go. That's it. So we're going to let that go for 2 hours now, believe it or not. I'm going to get rid of that juice that's in there. Okay. So we're going to let this come to a boil, which it actually is coming to a boil right now, as you can take a look and see. And you have to definitely give this an occasional stir. I would say just make sure you stir it now a little bit, make sure nothing is stuck to the bottom. Once you cover it and you put it to simmer, you can let it go for, I would say maybe every, 10 minutes you take a look at it, 10, 15 minutes, just take a look, check on it. Because it's not going to be cooking pretty fast, because it'll be like on a simmer, so it should be okay. But I do come in every once in a while, just give it a little stir. Make sure nothing's sticking together in the pot. Just keep an eye on it. All right, so that's pretty much it. I mean, I thought that was pretty painless, right? Just to get this sauce going. Again, it's going to be another great meal for you with your pasta dinner. So I'm going to let that go for 2 hours. It's coming to a boil now, so I'm going to just put that on simmer. I'm going to set my timer for 2 hours. And there you go. We're good to go. All right. We'll be back in 2 hours. We'll see how the sauce looks with the meat. And see you soon. Okay, it's been 2 hours now since we started the sauce with the pork meat. I'm going to turn my stove off. And let's take a look and see what's going on in here. Ooh, that does look good. And that's what we should have, just like this. Now, a couple ways you can take the grease off the top of the sauce. One way is, typically I use like I'll clean out a yogurt container or something like that. I'll just put it in the yogurt container and throw it out. You don't want to pour this stuff down the drain. down the drain. So if you come a little closer here, I'll show you how we're going to take this grease off. Let me get a little light on here so you can see. So see the grease how it just formed right around the end? So one way you can do it if you're going to serve the sauce right now is you can just take the grease. See, all the grease and fat is on there. You can just take it out like this with a spoon. And if you get a little extra sauce in there, it's okay. You can get rid of it. So this is the one way you can do it if you're going to have it today. The second way is, and that's what I'm going to do with this batch, is I'm going to put it in the, I'm going to let it cool, and I'm going to put it in the refrigerator overnight. And then tomorrow when we come back to this, I'm going to show you how we can just take all the grease off with a fork. And then we can just warm it up. We're going to make our pasta. We'll put it together tomorrow. One other way you could do this too, if you take a ladle, you could actually ladle the sauce and the fat together. And they have this special sort of, it's like a little pour spout kind of container. And you could pour the sauce with the grease in it. The grease will flow to the top, and the sauce will stay on the bottom. And since the spout comes down to the bottom of the container, as you pour it off, you pour the sauce back into the pot, leaving the grease behind. I thought we did have one of those. I didn't have one to show you. I was looking for it to show you. But one thing I want to do though, before you go, is why don't we take a taste of this right now and see how it is, because this looks like it came out pretty good. Now you see how it kind of stays intact? Now be careful when you stir it around too. I'm going to put a little sauce on here. I don't want the grease on there, a little sauce. But it's not going to kind of come. Now I just want to try to see how it came out. Be careful too, the next day, after you let this cool put in the refrigerator, the next day, be careful when you stir it, because the pork loin will come apart from the pork rib. It's fine if that happens. Kind of when I serve it up too, into a serving dish, it does come apart like that too, but the actual meat does stay together. So why don't we try this? I gotta confess to you that while I was waiting for this to cook, this came out pretty good. Oh, that flaked off just nice. While I was waiting for this to cook, I did take we have a farm market about 4 miles from my house. So I did take a bike ride down there in the middle of this. Get a little exercise in. And then to buy some of this. This is called Saloio bread. I guess it's spelled S-A-L-I-O-I-O. S-A-L-O-I-O is how you spell it. And I don't really know what that bread really means, but I've been eating it for years. Looks like a great loaf of bread. They sell it at this farmer's market. I think they bring it in from Brooklyn every day. So I'm just having a piece of this bread with this pork meat to taste. Oh, wow. That came out so good. Just a meal right in itself. Delicious. My favorite part, though, is the meat that's on the bone. And this piece here, I should have got a different piece because this piece doesn't have any bone to it. All right, well, anyway, that's it for now. I'll see you guys tomorrow when we finish up this sauce and plate it with our pasta.